I also knew their morale would be, you know, from the people that I met there, I knew their morale would be boosted by having a group of very different kind of people move into their town who actually had some joie de vivre and, you know, were enjoying themselves and riding around on their funky bikes and talking to everyone and engaging them and not trying to sell them on any religion or sell them on any kind of anything except, you know, try to live and enjoy again. And we're here to do the best we can to help facilitate that. I think it, you know, the biggest skeptics in the entire community ended up becoming their biggest fans.
How are we doing on time? Good. Okay. Tell me a little bit about what it. Actually, I'll come back to that. You talk about biggest skeptics in the community. What was that transition like when they first arrived in Pearlington? How did that go down?
I wasn't there, remember?
Right. Well, what did you hear? What did you think?
I didn't hear very much. That's a bad question for me. I was in an appendectomal abyss.
Well, let me ask you a different question. Okay, so you got them to agree to go there. What had to happen for them to actually make the jump?
They needed a space to live in comfortably, and I don't know who went with Richard, but I know that he went on scouting trips there to try and locate a good spot, and he found one that he liked very much. But it was a government spot, so there had to be a lot of channels to go through, and the great good fortune that we found out was that it was actually leased to the government. It was a postal slab, and the post office had been completely wiped off of it. For the most part, I believe that the burners came in and probably cleaned a good deal of debris off of that lot. But it was very nicely situated, where they would have some privacy and a great deal of room to set their camp up and be back off the road. The other available spots were more visible. And visibility wasn't the issue, but it was, you know, more of a thing of having cars driving back and forth in front of you all the time and everything. I mean, if you're going to be camped somewhere for a long time, you'd like to be able to kind of surround the wagons and be comfortable. So the process began with this spot of trying to get the government first to agree to let us use it. Which they wouldn't. And I went from postmaster to postmaster to the Postmaster General of Mississippi and pleaded and asked and said, come on, you know, you're not going to be rebuilding this post office again for a considerable amount of time. Let us use it 3 or 4 months. But they refused to do it. So finally, and they were actually a bit aggressive about it, because they said, you know, that needs to be empty. We need to be able to use it when we're ready to rebuild our post office, and which was very unrealistic considering the fact that, you know, rebuilding houses hadn't even started. So the post office was really, that part of the infrastructure was not going to happen quickly, and it won't still. So I finally located the actual owner of the property, who was a man in Maine named Mike Parsons. He also owned a couple of other post offices in Plaquemines Parish and St. Bernard's Parish. And I started to negotiate with him over the phone and discuss the possibility of using the property for a relief group to set up. And he
Go ahead.
He was a bit tough to win over to begin with, but I sent him a lot of information. I talked to him quite a bit on the phone, and finally he agreed with one contingency. He said that I had to go and assess his other 2 postal properties and take pictures and let him know what I thought about whether or not they needed to be demoed. And I thought that was a perfectly reasonable request, and he leased the property to me for $1. So it was a very good deal. And he let it go, and they moved on to the property. And very resourcefully did not ask for anything from the individuals, the council members or anything in Burlington. They were completely self-sufficient. They worked with generators and no electricity and no running water. Right? So it was quite remarkable how they managed to do it. My camp was not the same. I had both electricity and running water, so they're a resourceful bunch, yes, as we all know.
How did the Postal Service bureaucracy respond to to that lease?
They were very mad at me. Yes, they got very upset with me when they found out about it, and they did know that I was the source of it, and they called me and fussed at me and told me that that was really wrong of me to go over their head, and I was gracious and apologized and explained that there was a greater good here, and it was more important that people move on to that spot and take care of some of the needs of that town, and it was only going to be for a short period of time, and obviously to date they haven't even begun to touch that spot. They ended up leasing it out again to another group that lasted for a very short period of time. They were a bit late in the game. So that's okay. They'll live.
So tell me, had you ever been to Burning Man or met anybody from there, or what were your first impressions of this group? Who do you think these guys were?
No, I had never been to Burning Man. I have lots and lots of friends. A big contingency from the town I lived in always goes. And what was my first impression? I have met lots of burners, so I certainly was. My first impression was, yay, thanks, great, something social and wonderful to do. I think one of the best parts of it for us is that it made me, I think I was a good influence on Richard Scott in the sense that I said, you've got to slow down, and he said to me, you've got to slow down as well. We both realized that we had been going at this way too hard, and I was working 7 days a week, going to bed at 12 or 1 and waking up at 5 to get my paperwork and things done and everything in order before all of my volunteers woke up, and I had to take them to their houses to clean up and do whatever they needed to do and make sure they were fed and take care of all of this, and as well as dealing with a lot of paperwork and a lot of bureaucracy. I wasn't taking a day off at all. So finally, having another group of people who I felt connected to, it was a good thing mutually for us to say, okay, Sundays are no work days, and Saturdays became a wonderful, wonderful ritual where everyone would build pieces of art, that they would pull items from the debris piles and build these wonderful structures and burn them in their big old burn pit that they had in the middle of their camp. And I would bring my volunteers over every Saturday night, and some of my volunteers started burning things as well as some of the people in the community of Burlington. So it was, I think it was an enormous relief to people potentially in their campus, and especially I know in mine. I had the most amazing guy work with me, 71-year-old fellow named Gene Hall, who was there for 4 or 5 months with me, and boy, he needed some relief as well, and he made some very clever projects. He loved doing it. So it was great to see us enjoying ourselves a little bit instead of working ourselves into the ground every day, because you don't stop. You see there's so much to be done, and you know that you're barely touching the surface of it. And it's a very frustrating, obviously very rewarding, but a very frustrating and exhausting experience, because you just want to keep plugging away at it and to fix it, and it's not possible.
Tell me what you came to understand about Richard and why he was there, why he'd come and why he had stayed.